Oh, and we are live now.
We're live.
We are live.
Yay.
Hey guys, my name is Christopher Langell, and I'm here with Dee Suomala.
Yep, you read. Yep.
From NPJ Talk Radio.
Yes.
And I've known Dee for almost about a year now, I think it's been.
And we were introduced by
Trey
Goodman.
Trey
Hi,
Goodman.
Trey.
Hi, Trey. So tonight's episode is we come together as a community of support, which is what Help Me PTSD is all about. It's about supporting individuals who have PTSD, whether you're military, veteran, whether you're a civilian, it doesn't matter. We're here as a community to provide information, tools, resources, and just some good, friendly advice on how to deal with PTSD. So, Dee, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell the audience who you are and what kind of grinds your gears and what interests you so much about PTSD and why you came onto the show tonight.
Oh, good questions. Where do I start? Where's the list?
The list.
Hi, my name is Dee Suomala, and I've been in the nonprofit sector now for since the 80s. We'll just go with that. Being in the nonprofit sector, I've seen a lot, and over the years, I have really I've always had a sense of appreciation for our veterans and our American flag. And in 2010, I actually started posting the Pledge of Allegiance on a community page, Pledge Daily. And you can see that on my Facebook page. But our veterans are extremely important to me because without the men and women who have fought and died for our country, our freedoms, we would not be here right now talking to you live on YouTube.
Right.
So since the 80s, I've been in the nonprofit sector, and I brought my voice to the airways because of the expertise that I bring to the table, what to look for, what to know, how to ask the right questions when you want to give with a grateful heart, but yet you're not really sure what to ask or find out. We're going to show you we're going to not show you, we're going to help prompt you to ask the right questions. So today I'm here because, as Christopher knows, I'm a huge advocate for our veterans, and PTSD is something very important to me because it's a real thing. It's not something that should be hidden underneath a rock. It shouldn't be something that we ignore because that's something people are, that's all they know is like, what do you mean? PTSD. I'm gonna go back to my notes right here.
Right.
Really quick here.
So every week we come together, and just so you know, for those of you tuning in now, go ahead and if you have a question, a comment, a story you'd like to share, we're listening. I got my computer right over here off screen so we can respond to questions or comments as we go. But tonight's episode, we're gonna focus in on some topics that I've had a couple followers and viewers want discussed. And the first topic of tonight is going to be TBI. Then we're going to talk a little bit about PTSD in children and cap it off with a topic that has been requested quite often, which is what do you do in a household or a work environment and you're the person that doesn't have PTSD? How can you support your coworker that does? How can you support your brother or sister, even your own child, who has been traumatized and now suffers from PTSD? So that's kind of the game plan for tonight's
I don't know if you
show.
got my good side though.
Right? I think every side's your good side, D. Every side is your good side.
There is a difference between TBI and PTSD. So what I'm hearing is, and what I do know is that you can't have one without the other. Is that right?
I wouldn't say it's one without the other. I think it depends on, like I said, all trauma is different. With TBI, we're talking about a traumatic brain injury. And that can be a result from a car accident, any kind of concussion to your head. For our military, large explosions that result in your brain kind of jostling forward and backward within your cranium. And that causes a trauma. Now, the reason why, in my opinion, why PTSD and TBI are kind of overlapped and connected is because the first word is trauma. So whatever happened for you to have that concussion or that brain injury or however that injury came about was a pretty traumatic thing. And so what research has shown and where I'm getting my information on is from the veteran.gov, va.gov. These are all government sites that have the leading research in TBI, brain injury, and PTSD. And what they found is that TBI and PTSD kind of overlap. And where they overlap is with their symptoms. So whether it's anxiety or I know with PTSD, sometimes it's hard to process information, or it's hard to stay focused on something. And, some of that, even though I haven't had any TBI, but I have PTSD. And the other week when we were talking, you were sitting there and you were mentioning when I go to write, and there's this point in time where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I don't know anything, and it's like it kind of dawned on me because I have something similar, but it's like with I'll walk into a room and just complete, like I know what I was supposed to be doing. I had a list of things to do, and I just have to sit down and kind of wait for a minute until it comes to me again and figure it out, which I think most people experience, which can make TBI and PTSD diagnosis a little bit difficult.
Well, here, let me make this part personal. Many of the people who may or may not be watching, which they better be, in 2014, March 11th at 11:11 in 2014, it's time stamped, I was at QT, which is Quick Trip, or SA Super America. No, is it Super America up in Minnesota? All I know is that I fell down, go boom, and I cracked my head from here to here, and it perforated out of my ear, and to this day I have very little hearing. And when you say PTSD, Christopher, and traumatic brain injury, it's hard for me to walk into that same gas station.
Right.
I become more protective of my head, and it's something that I'm going to live with for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and that's, it's with any trauma, with any mental disorder, if you want to call it, or a deviation from normal functioning, it takes a lot of time, and it takes consistency, but most importantly, you got to find a way to pick up the pieces, somehow put them back together, and move forward.
So basically, when I was writing my notes and doing research on this, so I need to move forward, so that means you must do it this way?
Right, and here's another thing. Dee has a journal, and there's already some things written in here. She might be sharing them throughout the night, but it's a common thing that people say about PTSD is,
right,
well, you have to do it this way. And I've seen it happen. I've talked to people that even, going into therapy, and maybe it's a therapist, counselor, psychologist, which, that's the field I'm going into. I have my bachelor's in counseling. I'm hopefully going on to a doctoral program for psychology. And sometimes, just with any profession, people get stuck in their ways.
Yes.
And that can almost be detrimental at some point to the client or the patient, where you got to do it this way. This is what works. This is how it's going to happen. And from my experience with working with people with trauma or even TBI or whatever that may be, is everyone's different.
Yes.
It's not a cookie cutter section of information that's just like, here you go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're done, have a nice day, everything's good now. It doesn't work like that.
And the reason why I say that is, one of my pet peeves in working with people or talking with people, whether it be with PTSD or just life in general, a comment or a statement will be made of, you need to get over it.
Right.
Is one of my biggest pet peeves, because how you get over things, or how, and it's not getting over things, it's how you cope.
Right, it's
when
coping.
It comes to, it's coping. It's not something you're ever going to get rid of. It's never going to go away. So my coping.
Right. What is your coping?
Humor.
Humor?
Absolutely.
Gotta laugh about it.
It's not that I have to laugh about it. I like to, maybe it's more because I'm ignoring it, or I'm finding light in a room that's filled with darkness.
Right. And here's the thing, it's just a tidbit that I remember about laughter. Laughter in itself releases endorphins in your brain. It allows, usually when you're laughing, you're taking in more oxygen, things are starting, blood's flowing better. It feels good to laugh. You have to have a good time. I mean, I don't know if you've had to, but I've laughed so hard I've cried before.
Absolutely.
And it's the gut-wrenching laughs that, like, man, it feels good, but at the same time it hurts so bad because you're like, it's inside your chest and everything's going around, but laughter is definitely a way of healing.
And so for me, when I had that traumatic brain injury at the local gas station, it becomes a very uncomfortable conversation for the people that I talk to. It actually changes the whole tone of, hey, Christopher, how's it doing? By the way, I fell down, go boom, and now I have epilepsy. Right. It just changes the whole conversation. So to break the ice, I'll find something to laugh about.
Right.
So I'll say something, hey, we can actually do it right here, is if you see me falling down, shake, rattling, and rolling, let's get the video out and see if we can put it on YouTube.
And you know what? It's funny you mentioned, and this was not planned at all tonight, as far as how you incorporate, what we're talking about tonight is incorporating Help Me PTSD, so much so that with humor specifically, I've talked about it with vet buddies, and one of my veteran buddies said, you know what? We gotta laugh. We gotta have a good time. So in July of this year, actually, with our PTSD channel, that's a support group, we're adding a show, and it's going to be called Comedy for PTSD. Now, this is going to be done by veterans and some other people that have a more veteran mentality, so it's going to be a good time. I guarantee that. It's going to be fun. It's going to be short little videos, maybe a 30-minute segment, but they're going to provide an entertaining segment about PTSD, make it fun. Use comedy and laughter as a way to heal, and that's definitely something we value and incorporate here at Help Me PTSD.
And it's, in my opinion, is that humor is sometimes the best medicine.
Right.
And it kind of breaks away with what's really going on inside of us because we want to lighten the load.
Yeah.
And it can be really hard, and my heart goes out because I can't even imagine what some of our veterans are going through, and that's why I love and appreciate you. And I always, when I start talking about that, I always start tearing up. Yes, I do cry.
Right. Thank you, Dee. So,
thank you.
You know, without getting personal into details, as far as TBI goes with your experience, what, other than humor, after this incident happened, okay, so we had perfect go lucky D before incident A, and then all of a sudden everything came to a screeching halt, and now there's all these different things going on, whether your epilepsy, for instance, you said, and because of the fall that you had. What other ways after this happened have helped you get back to being the way you are today? Because the Dee that I know is on top of things, and I know maybe at some point in the past that might not have been the case, and I didn't know you back then. And so how did you go from that, from the point of incident, to where you're at today? Besides humor, is there any other ways that with your TBI you've been able to help figure out shortcuts or little cheats to guide yourself to being able to overcome it?
That actually poses a lot of good questions. Yes, I've always been this person who is happy-go-lucky and always on task, and been able to start A to B and actually go all the way through backwards through ZYX back to B. I've always been that person. The things that I did before the accident are still things that have become very important now, like writing things down. People say, like, for instance, I have to take medicine morning and night. Okay. Now, if you had to take medicine morning and night, what might work for you is the Monday through Sunday little things that you open up, the little drawers, and you put it in there. That doesn't work for me. Or maybe it is a timers. People say, well, put the reminder on your phone as an alarm. It doesn't work for me. What does work for me is, like, this will be my pill bottle, okay? And this little pom-pom thing, this is not the pill bottle, is I open it, and this is my morning time. And I take that pill bottle, and I flip it upside down, and that means I have to take it at night.
Right.
So at night, I'll just keep going. That's what works for me.
Oh, that's interesting. Neat.
And I can't, on this phone, we all have our calendars on here, and stuff like that. It doesn't work for me.
You gotta...
I have this big calendar on my desk at home, and that's what I go by because I'm visual. And one thing that I did in study is that when you do have a TBI on the right side, which is your cognitive side, my right hippocampus was, from my experience, we become more photogenic memory, to where the cognitive type, like you were saying earlier, I have, when it comes to like writing my best friend's name, Jenny, all of a sudden that animal, I'll go, it's right here. Right there, but I can't do it. I can't make that connection. It's really
interesting.
Weird.
And so, just for what you just physically showed with it, it doesn't go from here to here. Where I see a correlation between TBI and even PTSD is an event happened, and now there is a change in the brain regarding how information is being sent and received.
Correct.
So,
like one more thing is I can count 1 to 25 with you, like 1 to 25 without hesitation.
Right.
But the moment I'm like counting money, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, when I get to 20 to 21, I can't do it.
So it's something.
It's not that I can't do it. I struggle with it.
Right.
But I don't stop, and that's something that's been my personality all my life.
Well, that's good. And
so what got me after the TBR or the incident in March, it really made me wake up to say life is way too short.
Right.
Go. But I've always been that person. Let's go.
Right. And that's, and that's a huge positive mentality to have. And you're lucky to have that because some people just don't.
No.
Not to say that they can't ever get there, but some people need help getting to that point
Differently
where differently than you did.
Yes.
To get to that point. And with our community support, we have people that are at every different level of recovery, if you want, if you would like to call it. And the biggest and most empowering thing that I can see is that even if someone is not at the point where they're the get up, let's go and tackle this, being around that type of people and being around people who have that mentality and are there to help you get there is just an integral part of your positive support system. And that's one aspect that we do try to provide with our social media, whether it's our workshops that we provide here in Phoenix. And as we expand, we're trying to implement these same programs in other states.
Well, and to final that up is, I'm a huge risk taker, always have been, always will. Doesn't mean I don't think about it. I do, and a minute later I'm doing it.
Right.
It's just, and for me, the challenges that I've been facing since all of this has happened, yes, there are challenges, and it doesn't mean I don't think about it. It doesn't mean I just don't dwell on it, or how some people, I rise, I meet them, and I move forward in the best way that I know how.
Right, and that's that's all about what it is really is doing what you can, bring what you got to the table, and work with what you got. One of the other aspects is, in a book that is going to be coming out here soon, it's called Crushing Your Box. There's going to be a 2.0, and it's it's find those who work with you and work with them. You know what I'm saying? Bring what you got to the table, but find out who's with you and know that and use it to your ability to heal and prosper. But it's a give and take relationship, So everyone that wants to help you, you gotta be thinking, okay, how can I help them too? Because it's a balancing act. This brings us into another conversation, correlating. Go ahead. What do you have, Dee? Your socks?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dee, why do you got two different socks on?
Can they see it on there?
I don't,
There you go.
right? No, there's her socks.
The reason why I bring up the socks is I've been starting this thing about not wearing the same colored socks.
Interesting.
And the only reason why is because when people say, hey, ask me about my socks.
Right? Why? Dee, why are you wearing two different colored socks?
I'm so glad you asked. You know what? Arizona Stand Down is coming actually the 9th and 10th, Thursday and Friday and every time somebody asks, you know what, thanks for asking. Did you know that our veterans, our homeless veterans need some socks? And I was wondering if you can find some socks and maybe go down there and, donate to our veterans, our homeless veterans, or donate to me and stuff like that, because we need to bring the reminder or the gentle reminder that those things are needed. The socks are important.
No, and that's a great thing. And that's just one more time for those of you that didn't catch that. There's a huge event going on this weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? And it's a whole organized event I'm talking, there's got to be 50 different companies, businesses, nonprofits, state officials, lawyers, your driver's license capability to get your driver's license.
Right. And it's like if a veteran has a warrant out or whatever.
Oh, that was it. They can expunge it or help you get the.
No, it's like if they have it and all the veterans go to get help.
They can take care of it.
Those 3 days are. No crime, like they can't get arrested. They will not be arrested. Right,
and this event's going down in the Arizona State Fairgrounds. It's going to be the next 3 days, so tomorrow, Thursday, the 9th, Friday, the 10th, and Saturday, the 11th. They're starting 7, or I think gates open at 8, I want to say?
7.
7?
Yes.
Okay, 7. So gates open at 7. If you know a veteran that's either homeless or, more importantly, like we talked to Art Sloan about this weekend, even if it's a veteran and you just need help, you need resources, or you are in need of something, whether that's clothes, food, there's probably gonna be employing places down there to help people find jobs, transportation vouchers, a whole slew of stuff put on by a bunch of people in Arizona to help our veteran community. So go check them out. It's at the Arizona State Fairgrounds, and it's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday
And
this
I'm
week.
going to be doing an on-location interview or presentation
For NPJ?
on MPJ Talk
Nice.
Radio Friday at noon. You are welcome to come if
Well,
you'd like
thank
to.
you.
Yay.
I appreciate that.
Yay.
High five. I might be there. So that's kind of some other interesting stuff that we have going on in AZ. So to move on, it's TBI and PTSD are connected because of the symptoms. And that's or from what they said, whether that's headaches, feeling dizzy, being tired, trouble sleeping, vision problems, feeling bothered by noise at night, irritability. A lot of these things that are linked to TBI are very linked to PTSD. And, more as we transition here, that's one of our topics, and I think we did a pretty good job of kind of summing that up between linking them and just discussing about them. I've been inclined to go over a more kind of a serious topic. And serious, in my opinion, in this instance means it's just sad, because it's a sad reality of the society we live in. And that's children who have PTSD. And this derives from abuse, whether it's sexual, physical. The sad part is when I was looking up statistics about this, when it comes to child PTSD, 65%, can you guess where it comes from? What happened to the child? 65% of children have PTSD because of...
Well, I already know the answer. It's right there.
Oh, well...
I can't.
You can't... She can't guess. It's not physical abuse. It's not sexual abuse. It's not even psychological abuse. It's neglect.
But I'm going to focus in on that neglect for a moment.
Right.
In a society right now where we've got, texting and all of the media and the quick, I can go on here and talk to somebody on Minnesota.
Right.
Neglect can even be that mom walking down going into a grocery store, kid in a cart, and that's all she's doing. She's not paying attention to her kid when that's vital time right there.
Right.
I know I've seen it. I can't tell you how many times. Like, let's pay attention to our kids.
Right, and see, it's real easy to do, and not neglect. That's not easy to do. It's unintentional, but it's definitely having an adverse effect on the children growing up in this time, in this generation. For our younger children. I'm talking, 2.5 to 12 years old, let's say, or 2 to 18. Just that young adolescent impressionable years. They're still developing, growing, and neglect can look like a lot of different things. That's not giving them medical attention if they need to go to the doctor, and not taking them to the doctor. It could mean not changing their diaper right away. Maybe you just all get to it in a minute.
Or how about the worst?
Go ahead.
Giving them a bath.
Right, or not bathing them.
They neglect.
Providing the basic needs, food, shelter, water, or a neglect of that can be considered neglect. So that was a shock to me. In the U.S., just this last year, and each year involves about 5.5 million children. And proof of abuse in that 5.5 million is at 30%.
Wow.
So that's PTSD as a whole. That's a lot of children. And this is one of the things I said recently at I auditioned for a TED Talk, and one of the things that I said is, PTSD is very easily attributed to our veterans and military. It's just kind of a very lateral, PTSD veterans. And it's interesting because when you actually go look at statistics and you look at the numbers and crunch the numbers down, it's a far bigger problem for civilians. The reason being, only 0.5% of the United States population serves in the military.
Huh.
So
that's interesting.
I guess it's just easily portrayed because of the line of work, and people have, the media stations don't help with PTSD veterans, and they always show the guy running out of their house at 3 o'clock in the morning. Worst of worst. Very rarely do they want to show a PTSD story that ends in good things happening.
So then you're looking at not only the PTSD we need to help, but then the person who's going through it,
It-
all they're thinking or seeing is that they're being humiliated.
Yes.
And it's humbling to ask for help.
It is humbling to ask for help, and especially with children. And before we started tonight, I started talking. I was like, look, as a child, you're already kind of sitting on a lower pedestal. You're a child in an adult world, and regardless of how adults want to look at that, it's really how it is. And you know what? The sad part is, if you think back in your own life, you can remember what that felt like at some point in time. And so you're already at that pedestal. They're already feeling down here. I'm less than this. I'm a child. You're an adult. Dominant, not dominant.
But see, you're bringing up, you wanted to talk about PTSD in our children and the families. Sometimes can families even recognize PTSD?
Right, and that's the other thing, is a lot of it goes unknown. It goes unknown, it goes unnoticed, it goes unreported, and so that's the scary part. 5.5 million were reported.
Wow.
So, out of our population, which is way beyond that, how many are not being reported, and what are the statistics of all those, and what happens to them? And this is the thing with PTSD, and whether it's a child, an adult, it's about the environment. After the trauma happens, say, okay, one thing I always tell people: whatever happened April 30th or April 28th in 2014, you can't change that.
No.
That's never going to go away.
You mean my day?
Yeah.
March 11th.
Right. Whatever.
But you're right. I can't change it.
There's nothing you can do to change that. It's not going to go away. And for people that are in our supportive environment, one, they have to understand that that what happened isn't going to change, because a lot of people, like you said, get over it.
Yeah.
Oh, it happened 2 years ago. This shouldn't be
Right.
bothering you anymore.
It's in the past.
And it's in the past, so just don't let it.
But this is different. I am reminded every single day.
That this.
Yes, that this happened, and during the night, if I don't take my medicine, I'm reminded, because I either wake up. But going back to the children, all right, so children are known to be more resilient.
Yes.
So this traumatic brain injury, the concussions, or an event that had happened in their life, I as a parent, it's a learning opportunity. It's a growth.
Right, and you can't. And like I said, it's a great example of, I think, what does happen a lot of times. And as a parent, there's nothing worse than looking at your child or even a loved one, and one, not knowing what's wrong, or two, not knowing what you can do, if anything, to help it or help the situation.
So going back to what happened to me in March, is I fell and I went to, my mom and dad, love you. They were helping me, recover, but it was hard for them because they're parents and all they want to do is help, and they want to fix the child. Well, I don't need to be fixed. I need to find a way to live with.
Right.
And it was frustrating for me to sit and watch them, because they were trying so hard to find the right things to do, and they were absolutely amazing. I needed more care, just different than what they could give.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it does.
So as a parent, like let's say it was a child like 3-4 years, a parent shouldn't be the one that counsels a child. A parent is one, like my parents, who support and took care of. But but they're not, because all of a sudden I can imagine, like, let's say you're my child and I'm gonna fix you, and then if I don't, where does the guilt lie?
Right.
On both of us.
And so, like, one thing I will say, disclaimer: if you are a parent of a child that has PTSD or has experienced trauma, you need to go to a professional counselor, a professional psychologist, have evaluations done. Your role as a parent is to guide and support.
Yes.
It is not to fix,
Right.
counsel in that manner for those situations. A lot of times parents don't understand that. I'm a parent. I have 3 kids. I want to do everything in my power to take care of my kids. I would lay my life down for them. But there's some things that you, as a parent, have to see it. Okay, there's an issue. I can help you with it, but we need someone that can guide us to be able
to.
Because we don't know. And
that's okay.
And it is okay. Never be afraid to admit what you do. I'd rather someone tell me they don't know how to do something and ask how, than to just pretend like they do and go on and mess things up later. So some of the, issues with PTSD is like, of course it affects the person. So what does that look like for everyone else? And how do we establish a relationship after this trauma? Everything's different. The individual's not acting the same. There's, let's say, anger outbursts. There's, waking up in the middle of the night screaming for, bloody murder because of the night terror. There's a downright, you witness an anxiety and panic attack that leaves your loved one frozen in their steps, or even so much to see, like, laying on the ground because they literally crumble to the floor.
Because they probably don't know what...
don't know, right?
I know this from personal experience. There's times where I don't know I don't know what it means. I don't know what to do.
Right.
And so I'll kind of like go like this, and then in my time, not anybody else's time.
Right.
And that's the key right there, in my opinion, is that if I'm sitting here bundled up in a little ball, and if you come and you talk to me, it's not going to do me any good.
No.
It has to be done in my time.
Yep, and that's and see, it's with PTSD and family members and support, there's a new necessity of building respect, trust, and understanding. And I look at the root of most problems, however you look at, is due to the failure of solid, effective communication. And this is where it gets to two parts. I wish I could sit here and say, if you're a family member of someone that has PTSD, or a parent of a child who has PTSD, this is all on you. Here's all the things you can fix it. It doesn't work like that. In this situation, in this reality that we've just created, which is someone that has PTSD, or you're someone that has PTSD and you have a family that just doesn't freaking understand it. It takes two to tango when it comes to building healthy, positive, supportive relationships. On the person with PTSD side, you have to figure out how to understand yourself. You have to figure out how to understand, for as best as you can, whether it's on your own or even with a counselor, however you may go about that, you have to begin to learn what's going on in your life. Does that,
absolutely.
To educate yourself on, okay, I have anxiety. One of the first steps to recovery is going along and admitting everything that is wrong, owning it, and then you're able to go and take care of and control of something.
Something you said as far as communication, it is the key to every great, successful relationship. So let's make an example. Christopher, you and I get into an argument.
Right.
Okay, but did we?
No.
Let's think about that. So you said something that I took a step back and I go, I could really get pissed off about that. Wait a minute, that's not fair to you.
Right.
And it's not fair to me. And I'm going to come back to you and say, Christopher, what did you mean by that?
Right.
Because then that makes it fair, because the intent behind your statement or whatever may have been completely different than how I received it. So we have to give the benefit of the doubt, saying, hey, before I do get pissed off at you, did you really mean that?
Right, and this is what you've just shown and displayed right now in live stream is the ability that you have to, you heard something that you didn't agree with. In a PTSD setting, when I first got back, if I heard something I didn't agree with, my mouth is diarrhea of everything that you probably didn't want to hear before I even processed everything that was going to be said.
So then me coming to you and saying, I didn't...
Hey,
what did you mean by that?
You know, exactly. And what you did was you stopped, you kind of looked, and you listened. And that's three things that I always tell people. If you can't do anything else, stop, look, and listen. What you did was you stopped. You just put a dead pause. You listened. You were listening. Then you stopped, and then you looked. And you looked. When you looked, it's not a visual look. It's you looked inside and was like, this doesn't make sense to me. That aggravated me. I'm not sure why it aggravated me. Let me clarify and see if I can make sense of it.
Yeah, the people that are around me, if there's something that I don't understand,
Right.
I'll say, Christopher, what did you mean by that? It could be something as little ladybugs, you know?
Right.
And stuff like that.
And
But let me ask you, I have
go
another
ahead.
question. All right, you have expressed that an outburst,
Mhm.
PTSD, an outburst. Me, who didn't go through the things that you did,
Right.
if you're going through that outburst, blah, 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 I am going to take a step back. Because in my opinion, I need to let you be. Because if
Right.
I were to sit and say, if you keep going like that, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. It takes the safety away from the relationship.
Right.
So what would I do? What's a good?
As far as okay, so and let's go at the lashing out and what can happen as far as the individual who is let's call them the aggressor, or I'm an outburst of emotion that is not in a positive release.
I don't see you as the aggressor.
But that's kind of how I'm
Okay.
just separating. And then the other person is the innocent bystander, just trying to be a good friend or a positive support. And one, as a person that doesn't have PTSD, you have the ability to walk away, just as anyone does with PTSD. Hey, they had the choice to walk away. They chose not to, and start getting loud, aggressive, angry, and show that outburst, however they may be, whether it gets physical or just verbal. Most all altercations start as verbal, and due to lack of communication, they turn physical. So the best thing you can do when a situation arises where there's an aggressive and it doesn't have to be physical. It can be you're verbally abusive.
Yes.
Veterans are great at this. We went in a environment that pretty much from 4 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night, we were just verbally abusive to each other because that was fun to us. It's that, or to a lot of people. I'm not saying all people in the military, but we like to joke. Look at all the people on YouTube. Look at John Burke. I mean, on Facebook and some other,
I'm going to stop you right there.
Go ahead.
Too. Okay, we've got where it was conditioned.
Right.
All right. Then we have those who lived in an environment where it was downright mean and cruel. The verbal abuse turned to emotional abuse, which affected you physically.
Right. And and like I said, this is a perfect example of how it's different for everyone.
Yes.
As far as with that situation, let's go back to the person that's the bystander. This is now an outburst. I'm trying to deal with this, regardless of the trauma. I don't like to look at that. This is they have PTSD, so it's justified-ish, as far as this is how they're processing that emotion at this time because of a trauma. But this person right here, you have to take I'm the mature, responsible adult. Boom. And then you have two choices. My first choice is I'm gonna walk away, and we'll come back to this later when we're both calm and rational. Period. I'm not gonna spend my time being verbally abused and try to help you in any way, shape, or form.
Because it brings out the ugly side of both of you.
And it's just gonna be the person who maintains calm, composure, and centered respect. If you maintain your own personal respect, you have the upper hand. And it's not about upper hand winning or losing. It's just at that point, as a positive support, you have to take the high road. You have to be the responsible adult and take the high road, because they're not at a place right now in their life where they are able to. And that's the thing. So that's the instance. The initial, here's what you do: walk away. Just walk away until you can come at a level. Sit down. Okay. We're gonna talk about what just happened. And one of the tools that I've learned over the last 2 years of education and some internships is the use of a talking stick. It's a talking stick method. You can use a stick, you can use a rock, you can use a phone, a computer, a pen. So with that person, and if it's verbal arguments that you're getting into all the time, it's always a constant battle, back and forth. You can never, you're getting over, yelled at, then I'm getting over yelled at. So we're going to introduce a simple technique, and it's called a talking stick or talking object. And the responsible adult this is a tool for you to use, because the other person is not thinking to be like, okay, we need to talk. I want to sit down and communicate with you, and I want to be able to help you, and this is how I will be able to. So we're going to take turns talking, And whoever holds this is the person that's going to talk.
I agree with him.
And see, that's what would happen. In with the business, they're going to take, and it's like, nope, we're going to set a timer. I get 2 minutes, and then you get 2 minutes.
But what if I want to interrupt you?
Nope, it doesn't happen like that. You interrupt me, I'm walking away, we're not talking about this.
Really?
And then you don't get help.
Well, wouldn't that take the safety of the conversation away?
There's, taking this away?
So then if I had my notebook, like let's say you have that talking stick,
okay,
and I heard something that I want to, talk about.
You can write down.
Yeah, what a great idea.
And that goes back into a journaling mechanism. So this is just a tool you can use to de-escalate a situation. Now that's what the observant participant can be. The person that doesn't have PTSD, that's the adult, or should be the responsible, respectful adult in the situation. That's kind of what they do. Walk away, let's come back and reassess this. Now we just gave you a tool this is how we can communicate and work through our issues. Whether that be, maybe it's only 30 seconds at first, and then maybe next time it's a minute, and you can build up. But the point is to maintain an established respect of communication to where it's an equal conversation. It's not one person overpowering another, and that fosters healthy communication. Now, let's go back to the other side, the person that has PTSD. Like I said, it's a two-sided street. It's going both ways. It takes dedication, it takes persistence, and it takes commitment to understanding your PTSD. Now, as a supportive adult or a supportive friend, you can do everything in the world to help me get there. But in order to help me, I have to show I want to help myself first. Because if the person that has PTSD doesn't want it, and they're just going to sit and sulk and nothing's ever going to work for me, I'm never going to get better, it's always going to be this way, just leave me alone. Cool, you want to be left? Go ahead. Don't come running. You have to understand yourself. There's a variety of ways that you can do that. With the outburst, whether that is, or even an anxiety attack. I know, for instance, for me, one of the first times I had an anxiety attack, I had my sister just start laughing in my face. Oh, is this some kind of anxiety attack that veterans have after they come back from war? Was the real zinger. And this was fresh on my back. My reaction was grab by throat, slam hand against wall, and start verbally abusively yelling. And she just looked at me and was like, oh, this is not what I thought was going to happen. Well, two things happened. One, she never questioned an anxiety attack again, so I got what I wanted out of it. But two, later on, I went back and I apologized because I was wrong for what I did, and we had to figure out a different way to communicate.
But what got you to know that you had PTSD? Because I can only imagine some of the people,
right,
they don't know how to recognize those signs and symptoms.
They don't. And, one, it's understanding what you've been through. If it's an event or if it's a car accident, whatever it is, the thing is it's a traumatic world we live in. No matter how you look at it, the statistics are so high with PTSD, you can be traumatized by anything. Society in general, we've desensitized a lot of trauma. For example, a kid breaks their arm on the monkey bars. Hundreds of kids do that every day in America, and you go to the hospital, they take an x-ray, they give you a cast, they call you back in 6 weeks, cut the cast off, then you go to physical therapy, and then have a nice day. And what happened was we've normalized the process of that.
Right.
It's a very simple, this is step-by-step how you recover from that. But as far as the learning experience, it was probably a rapid learning experience. I fell because I wasn't playing safe on the monkey bars. I broke my arm. I'm going to be careful now when I play on the monkey bars.
If you ever play on them.
Yes, and I use that example because that's a controllable trauma. It was. If you look back at that instance in that day, there was probably something, if it's a physical injury, and I'm not saying the slip and accidental stuff, I'm talking about you were out playing, you were using a saw on the table, and you shoot, and it's like, well, you probably didn't use the bear claw method that you were taught in wood shop, did you now? Even cooking in the kitchen, you're using the mandolin. I've seen it happen. Guy cuts all tips of, like, oh, you didn't use so some of those things is you can look back and you can take the blame off of the incident as being traumatic and say, well, it was really my fault, so, well, that sucked. And that's not the case with other traumas that are uncontrollable. I was at war. I got shot at. I've seen dead people, dead bodies, all that. I had a slip and fall and accident. I was sexually abused as a child. These things that are out of control, you have to look at differently. And with people with PTSD, it's essential that we come into knowing ourselves extremely well. You got to be your own best friend. One of the things is how likely are you to look at yourself in the mirror and just say I love you? It's hard to do. I've done that in a group session before, and about 5 out of the 7 people just broke down and cried. Because it's hard. We're so hard on ourselves a lot of time, and we don't take the time to really know ourselves. With PTSD, it takes you to a whole different level of having to know. You have to understand what's going on. Okay, once you find out, it's like, I might have PTSD. Okay, oh, well, now that nightmare, that makes sense. Okay, so now I've got these lists of things that are happening. And now you've developed this. The more the person learns about themselves, the better they can help explain what's going on to their supportive person. The better the person that's trying to be supportive understand what's going on, the more help they can provide.
So as a man, though, I can only imagine it's harder for a man to ask for help.
Yeah.
He may recognize all the signs and symptoms of PTSD,
Right.
but as a child who is supposed to be resilient,
Yep.
and a man who's supposed to be tough,
Right.
it's gotta hurt the own private war that's going on.
It really is, and I attribute that to a society we live in that embellishes on emotional control of men. That it's not okay to cry. Oh, you're not hurt. You're fine. Get up. Carry on. And it's not to say that to be over sentimental or over emotional, but there's these things called emotions. You got to learn each one, and to be honest, is like when you understand how to fully embrace each emotion that you have, whether it's anger, happiness, sadness, guilt, whatever it may be, and you learn how to process them in a healthy manner.
It hurts.
Yes, for some of them it does, but when you're releasing those in a normal manner, your life becomes so much more manageable. I say, or enjoyable. It's not a big up and down. It's more of, at first, let's say it's a big wheel and you're kind of on the outside and you're just kind of riding up and down and around. And the goal of, self-observation is to really take a step off of the outside of the wagon wheel and sit right on the spindle and just kind of walk along as the wheel keeps spinning, And it's a journey. It really is, and it's tough and it's not easy.
So as a child, if something bad happens as a child, children are resilient. Oh, learning experience there, Christopher, gonna toughen you up.
Right.
But yet, growing up with like night terrors, I am so very aware of night terrors because of the things that I went through. And it wasn't until I started doing this show and a little bit before, because I went to school for psychology, that I understood that those night terrors mean something.
Right. And the thing is with children, and it's a lot of it's not understanding. Like trauma, let's say trauma is trauma. Regardless of how it comes, let's just say trauma is trauma. There's no worse trauma or less worse trauma, but it's just straight trauma. The difference between an adult experiencing a traumatic event and a child experiencing a traumatic event is an adult, after a certain age, you're fully developed, brain-wise, physically, emotionally, mentally, or should be at a developed stage, right? With children, all of these different things are still developing. The brain's still growing. They're still learning and associating things with each other, depending on the age. So in research that's been seen, when a child has a trauma, whether that be when they're 12 years old, 10 years old, or 8 years old, 5 years old, 2 years old, their developmental process just kind of pauses. And it can result in two different ways. They can stay very childlike, or in some cases, they can get very adult-like. Especially when it comes to sexual abuse or child abuse in that manner, when it's physical child abuse, sexual assault, stuff like that, because they've just done they've had something very adult-like happen to them, a sexual experience. So they pause, it's developmentally, so they're still in the mindset of however old they are, but now they're literally forced to act and behave in a adult manner. Without understanding all that stuff. It forced you to grow up real quick. The worst thing is for, and my heart goes out to them, is the children that are in an environment where it's happened. The worst is parents that know it's happened and ignore it. Mm-hmm. Or it's just such a power control with the perpetrator or the abuser that the child's so scared to do anything. See, because earlier in the show I mentioned with children, you're already at the adult child. I'm lesser than you, and you're in control of me. So what do you think happens when this adult that already has that power goes and smacks the child? Let's take way little now, and you're way up here. So scared and so in fear that they don't want to tell anyone. And in my personal opinion, a lot of people that I know in a real solid group out here, no child deserves to live in fear.
No.
Not one child deserves to live in fear. If you or a family member knows of a child that has been abused or is possibly being abused, I encourage you to, one, report that regardless, even if just report it. There's no harm in foul if nothing happens from it, but if you have unreasonable doubt that a child is being abused sexually, physically, emotionally, or being neglected, report it. Call out. Do something. Be the voice for them, because at that point in their life, they don't have one.
And here's the other thing too about what you just said. More people need to stand up and do that, because we do live in a tainted society to say, that's none of your business.
Right. And, over the last years I've been out of the military, child abuse I haven't experienced that myself or know anyone directly personally that has, thank God, but
it hurts.
It does. And it just to see that that's a fact of the world, that this happens is just disgusting to me. And, one thing I know is, again, resource. We like to give resources. If you do know someone that has experienced child abuse, or a family that is dealing with a child that has had PTSD due to an abusive situation, check out BACA, Bikers Against Child Abuse. Their mission is to make sure that children do not live in fear. No child deserves to live in fear. They're a legitimately worldwide nonprofit organization. It's a bunch of bikers on a good mission, so they got the rugged look, but they head over heels. No,
aren't you a motorcyclist?
I am a motorcyclist,
Me too.
but I'm not. I do not ride with them.
No.
I know a lot of them out here in Phoenix, but
no comment.
Give them a call. Find the local chapter, BACA, Bikers Against Child Abuse. They do phenomenal work that goes beyond making sure that children are empowered. They empower children to a whole different level that I've ever seen. They're in most states in the United States. They're in a couple, I think it's like, I don't want to be wrong, like 7 to 12 different countries right now.
Wow.
And with startup efforts pretty much everywhere else.
Well, my red, white, and blue friends, they are huge supporters as well.
Right.
They're amazing people.
So, but that's, and it is a sad reality, but that's what we can do. So, beyond, tying it back into PTSD and what you can do as a positive support, it's all about communication. It's all about understanding. In order to do that, the person that you're trying to help, they first have to understand what's going on with them. If they don't know what's going on with them, it's going to be very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's going to be very difficult to help them.
Now, I think we're out of time.
We do. We got 4 minutes left.
Well, I just wanted to finish up by saying thank you so much, Christopher, for bringing me on here. It's really a pleasure and honor to be working with you, and hope you can come out on Friday.
Right. I'll try to make it there. I appreciate the offer.
It's going to be live on MPJ Talk Radio at noon. Also, another good resource, not only BACA, but I'd like to put out there is 211. I don't know if you're familiar.
What's that?
It's the Community information and referral line.
Okay.
And it's similar to like the 911, the 411. We now have 211 here in Arizona.
Okay.
So I would dial 211, and someone would, it would be a recording, and you have options to say, hey, I need help with rent, or all these different things. And it's a huge database of all the nonprofits here that can help you.
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
No, that's great. And there's a lot of good efforts going on in Arizona as far as nonprofits. There, a lot of good stuff going on here. So that about wraps it up for what we have content wise for tonight's show. We do have some upcoming stuff that I'd like to mention. If you didn't know, Help Me PTSD works alongside with Healing America's Heroes. They're a nonprofit organization out of Chama, New Mexico. If you are a veteran, and male, female, you're a veteran anytime, it's not like Wounded Warriors where you have to be OEF or OIF or whatnot. No, we help Gulf War, Vietnam War, all the wars. If you are a veteran and even haven't been to war and you have PTSD, TBI, or military sexual trauma, MST, you can apply to go to Healing America's Heroes. This is a week-long inpatient equine therapy and fly fishing program. They offer nightly classes for the week you're there. They put you up in a lodging area. They feed you 3 meals a day. It's a great time with other brothers and sisters that served in the military, and all you got to do is get there. So that's coming up in May, and I'll be out there. We got a huge conference coming up in New Mexico. So stay up to date on helpmeptsd.org for all of those details. If you want to register for the Healing America's Heroes program, go over to healingamericasheroes.com. You can submit a request, and one of the people that work there will get back to you. In the meantime, go on over to our Facebook page. Invite people over to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're not going anywhere. This is a forming effort of a community of support. We've got a pretty decent social media group going, and we're just here to be a positive support for those that suffer from trauma. So like us on Facebook, share our videos, subscribe, and stay up to date with events at helpmeptsd.org. But other than that, I'm Chris Langell, and this is
Dee Suomala with NPJ Talk Radio. Can I share one more thing?
Share one more thing.
Are you sure?
Yeah, sure. One more. PS go.
Okay, so I'd like to share, follow us on Daily Pledge. Every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, the Pledge Allegiance is posted in honor of our veterans.
Right.
And it's got nice following, and I would really like you to, it's facebook.com/Daily Pledge.
Right.
Like us.
Especially now in the day and age, support the Pledge of Allegiance in America all the way. So
yes, and don't burn our flag.
Don't burn our flag. One way or another, get involved. Be a positive support to someone that you love and care about. And if you know someone struggling with PTSD, tell them to reach out. Help Me PTSD, #Help Me PTSD, #veterans, #all of it. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Help Me PTSD. Let's talk about it. We'll have Big Sky Recovery from Mesa, Arizona. Their director is going to come out. We're going to talk about treatment programs available for inpatient and kind of their take on PTSD, substance abuse, and what they're doing to help the community out here. So other than that, you guys have a safe weekend and a good night. Dee, as always, it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Did you almost hit? You almost hit me, Dee?
No, I was like doing
We're
that whole...
gonna have to take this off camera.
All right, fine.